active, yeah, I'm all in it. I got a good story every time I wake up. I'm in the action, chips on the table. I want the feel good, I need another percentage. I want the win, lucky 7 every time I walk in. You know, every time.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Hi. Oh, thanks for the dance moves. Yeah. My name is Nichelle Desautels, and I am a field education trainer here in Vancouver, BC for Wella professionals. I wanted to start off by thanking you all for being here today, and also thanking Modern for letting us take over their Instagram. We've been on every Tuesday and Thursday for the past, I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks now. And I know we've all really enjoyed coming on here and sharing our knowledge. So thank you for joining us week after week. And yeah, I look forward to being on here more. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys could use the question cards today, I believe it's like right there. There's a little box with a question mark in it. I am doing this live with no co-host today. So I'd really love if you guys could use the question cards. It makes it easy for me to retrieve it. But I do know I have a few coworkers that are in the chat box right now. So if you do have questions and you throw them in there, I'm sure they'll be able to retrieve them for you. So today we are going to talk about color correction. For anybody that knows me or has taken any of my classes, they know that I love color, and specifically color correction. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I do a lot of it in the salon. So I'm really excited to bring this to life to you guys today on a live. It looks like we have a question already. Oh, love your hair. Thank you. So we'll kind of just start off by, what does everybody think the first step to color correction is? If you want to just throw it up in the chat box, I'll give you a minute or so to throw it in there. So what is the first step to color correction? I know someone in there knows the answer. Yeah, okay, we got a couple. So analysis, consultation, yes. So this is kind of a trick question. As artists and as hairstylists, we tend to go right into formulation and what we're going to do. We look at that head of hair and we immediately start formulating what we're going to do to get there. But how do we know how to get there? And it always comes back to consultation. And it's not just in a color correction scenario, but in any kind of color scenario, the first step is always going to be consultation. So that's kind of a trick question. If you guys didn't see it on Tuesday, my coworker and friend Chelsea Mann did a wonderful live that's saved on the Modern Instagram TV on the 6 steps to consultation. I actually think she has 7 steps. And it was a really great way to kind of break down how to do a consultation and really gather all the information you need from your clients. Same as what I meant. Oh yeah, perfect. Important stuff. Yes. Questions, then analysis. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. All right answers. Some key points that I like to bring out from Chelsea's live when she was talking about consultation and how I kind of bring it into a color correction scenario is when we're gathering information, a lot of information that I want to know from my clients is their lifestyle. How often are they going to be in the salon? Why do they want this big change all of a sudden? What's their budget? And one good point she brought up in that live was, how do we approach the subject of budget? And one thing she said is, at the end of the consultation, we'll say, is there a budget I should be respectful of? And I think that's a really good thing to talk about, especially in color correction, because it's going to help you plan how you're going to go about it and come up with whether it's going to be a one-time, or we're going to have to do it over multiple sessions to respect that budget. And then another thing she talks about is doing a summary at the end. So what I like about doing a summary at the end is because a consultation, especially for a color correction, can be quite a lengthy consultation. And so going through the summary at the end and saying, making sure you both have a clear understanding of what the steps are going to be, what the process is going to be, what the budget is going to be, what the long-term plan is going to be. And then also in that, you're able to manage their expectations, because that brings me to my next point of managing expectations. In color correction, we get it all the time. Somebody comes in with black box-dyed hair and they're like, I want to have silver hair today. And you're like, okay, let's manage those expectations. It's not ever not possible. It's always possible, but it's managing their expectations of how we're going to get there is very important. So I feel like the summary manages those very well. And you can have inspo pictures. You can come up with the long-term plan. And I always under promise and over deliver. It's something we hear in the field quite a bit in salons, always under promise, and then you can over deliver. So then it comes to, what is the next step of color correction? So the next step would be, do not panic. I know when we get a color correction, it can be very overwhelming when they sit in our chair and we're thinking, our mind is just going, oh my God, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna tackle this? The most important thing is do not panic. And what I love about what Wella has done is they have broken down color correction into 4 very easy scenarios. And then if you go into our app, there is a knowledge library where it has all the very, all the different kind of formulas you would need for color correction. So it has all their lightening formulas, all their filling formulas. It's all the information is in this app. So don't panic. We have provided the information for you, and we'll make it really easy for you to tackle and diagnose in the salon. And then kind of the next thing I want to talk about before I bring my mannequin in is strand testing. When I'm doing a color correction, depending on the kind of color correction I'm doing, but most of the time I'm going to do a strand test. And I know it takes time, but it's going to make your life so much easier to do that strand test. How I like to do it is I take my Blonde or multi-blonde powder and I mix it 1-to-1 with 10 volume. And name of the app. The app is called Wella Professionals app. It's by Scissor Boy. You can find it in Google Play Store or the Apple App Store as well. So I mix my Blonde or multi-blonde powder 1-to-1 with 10 volume, and I leave it on for up to 15 minutes. So 5 minutes. I take a 1 centimeter squared section. I could do it on multiple areas of the head depending on what I'm seeing. And I leave it on for 15 minutes. And all I'm trying to do with that test run is I'm trying to expose what's underneath, where my banding is. Maybe there's highlights underneath there. Can their hair handle a lightening service? If I put 10 volume on for 15 minutes and the hair is stretchy, it's not going to handle anything. I know some people will go on with 40 vol because it's quicker, but I do find that 10 volume is just enough to budge through some of that layers and kind of just show you where the banding and everything is going to be. Okay. So I am going to bring in Sally. So Sally has been divided into 4 different sections, and each section and each quadrant is a different color correction scenario. So I tried to keep this very relatable to what maybe we're going to be seeing in a post-quarantine. I know a lot of people are back to work already. I go back to work next month, and I've already started some consultations with my clients, and I've seen I'm definitely going to be dealing with some color correction scenarios. So I will start with my first section here, and that section is too dark. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see that. There we go. Too dark. So Sally was in quarantine. She decided to cover her own roots and she picked up medium blonde, but it went black. I'm sure we've all seen that so far. And there's many different ways you can tackle this. Like I said, in the app and that color correction sheet, there is all different lightening scenarios that you can use. But in this kind of scenario, what's happened is she's touched up her roots and it's grown out for a few weeks, and now she has a little bit of natural root on there as well. So not only are you dealing with a natural kind of root right at the top, and then you're dealing with this dark banding, and then you're dealing with the color that's left on her ends, which is probably also faded after 3 months of quarantine. How are we going to tackle this without getting too bright of roots, or how are we going to reduce or remove this banding for her without compromising her hair or creating another color correction for ourselves? A lot of times when you go with an enlightener in this kind of scenario, you can almost create another correction. So kind of when I'm dealing with too dark and going lighter, my first step is always going to be a product called Color Renew. So this is Color Renew. You have a powder, which comes in little sachets, and then an activator liquid. What Color Renew is it's a color reducer. So it's not a remover, it's not a, just dropping stuff, sorry. It's not a persulfate based product, so it's not a lightener, it's a reducer. And what it's going to do is it's going to reduce the oxidative or permanent pigments that are in the hair. So it's gonna help reduce some of that dark pigment and really make a lightening service later on easier. Or you could just do it in one step and it could remove enough of it that you don't need to go in with a lightening service afterwards. But it's really a great first step when you have that dark kind of banding there, or you have or you're dealing with a very dark color where somebody's been pulling so much color through their ends every time and they're wanting to go lighter. This is gonna remove as much of that pigment as you could possibly get from the hair. You can do the service up to 2 times in one service. So what I have done is I've kind of decided to cooking show this. So I will bring in Sally Corrected. So Sally Corrected, this is that same section, same color, and I've done 1 renew service for 45 minutes. I have a picture here for you guys. Which one was it? This one, yes. So too dark. I did Color Renew, which is 1 part powder to 10 parts of the activator for 45 minutes with heat. Okay. And this was the result. So you can see there, it actually lightened up quite a bit. If I do a side by side here, let me see if I can do this. So that was how dark she was, about a level 4. And now I've gotten her to almost like a level 6, level 5.5, 6 in one service. Now you can do this service up to 2 times in one sitting. So if I did this another time, think about how much of that pigment I would remove. Now my kind of next steps here would be, if she is happy with that, then we could just leave it and do another renew service, or we could go in with diagonal back highlights to kind of break up that line a little bit. Or maybe she's happy with this color and she decides, this is what she wants roots to ends. Now we can go in with a target shade and maybe even just drop the root and blend it out, give her like a root melt, or take this whole section to that darker color. It kind of leaves you with limitless options. And if you were to go in and highlight this now, since so much of that dark pigment is removed, it's going to highlight beautifully and you're not going to be fighting a lot of banding. Okay, just see we have a question here. What kind of heat did you use? So with Wella, we always talk about a Climazon. Now, if I'm being real, I used a bag and my dryer and some towels because I don't have a Climazon here at home, unfortunately. But if I had used a Climazon, this would have lightened even more, or not lightened, but reduced even more, because then you would have had proper heat on it. Okay. Awesome. So that's my 2 dark section. Does anybody have any questions about Renew before I move on? It's great that you can do another client with still color correction is processing. So easy. Yes. And that's what I love about Color Renew is since it's a 45-minute processing time, I could do a haircut in between. I could fit somebody else in between because I don't have to worry about it. It's going to reduce the pigment. It's not going to overlift. I don't have to babysit it like I would a lightening service. So that's why it's a really great option. So our question is it damaging? No, it's not. Because it's not persulfate based, it's powered by vitamin C and citric acid. It is not damaging. It's also, the thing I forgot to add is it's not going to affect the natural hair. So that little 1/4 inch that I talked about of root that she possibly has, it's not going to affect that. So you're not going to accidentally lighten it and create a band. All you're doing is reducing the oxidative pigment. So it's a great question. All right, so I'll move on to my next section here, which is Too Light. So this is actually a beautiful color. I actually toned this with 8-stroke 9-6 from Illumina. So it actually was quite beautiful. But in this kind of scenario, I'm thinking the client's come in, she's been in quarantine for 3 months. She probably has quite a bit of root. She was a global lightening service beforehand, and now she has roots that have come in that are dark and it's high maintenance, and maybe she's lost her job or budgets have changed, whatever. Something in her life has changed, and that goes back to consultation. Her lifestyle has changed. She now can't keep up with her roots or doesn't want to keep up with her roots in a global lightening service. What do? She still wants to, after talking to her, she says, I still love the brightness, but I can't afford or I can't be in here every 4 weeks to do my roots anymore. What are my options with still keeping the brightness? And this is a scenario I've run into the salon actually before. This was a few months before quarantine. But it was somebody that had been a global lightening for many, many years, but just couldn't do the roots anymore. And when we're going 2 levels or more darker, we always have to fill the hair. So how do we get that root or shadow root her essentially as, yes, Nick, that's where I'm going. I'm going to shadow root her and try and give her a more seamless blend and a low maintenance color while still keeping the ends bright. But when I'm going 2 levels more darker, I have to fill. So how do we do a shadow root, fill, and then go with our target shade without creating a hot mess? So Wella has this wonderful formula that came out with our new Colistin Perfect formulation called Back to Natural. It was probably one of my favorite formulas that came out because, as you know, when we fill, we always create warmth, no matter how hard we try not to, because we have to replace that underlying contributing pigment. And when you're just doing a shadow root, how do we make sure we cover everything and get it? It's a 2-step service. It's going to take time. It's going to take a precise application. Now we're looking at shadow rooting with a Back to Natural formula. It's one formula. It fills and does your target shade in 1 step. And because it's a Back to Natural, it's a very neutral color. So it's going to be not warm. It's going to be almost kind of more in the ashy neutral side, which is quite beautiful. So I will grab Sally 2.0. And this is what I did. So as you can see, it's a very natural finish. I ended up doing a glossing service on her ends just to kind of freshen up the ends. But I was able to give her a root while still keeping the ends nice and bright and making it look like a very natural shadow root. So we have a question here. What formula did you use? So for my shadow root, what I love about Back to Natural, here I'll bring up my photo. Back to Natural, here we go. So your Back to Natural is going to be 1 part color and 2 parts 10 volume. And you apply it on dry hair and you develop for up to 40 minutes. With the formulation, it makes it really easy. In the app, on that sheet I showed you, there is a chart that says Back to Natural and it's by level. So I decided she was a level 5 naturally, and so we wanted to blend out that level 5 root. So I went in with level 5 Back to Natural formula, which is 1 part 5/5 stroke 0, so double pigmented natural, and 1 part 6 stroke 7/7, which is a level 6 double brown. So it's got a little bit of a warm background to it, and that's kind of where we're getting our fill from. So this is the result that you get. I worked in diagonal back sections on the head. So if I grab my comb here, I'm just going to show you. I worked in diagonal sections down the head. What I did is I first went in and just kind of saturated my root area in diagonal sections, and then as I worked the hair back down, I actually, let me see if there's a way I can show you guys. So pretend this is my diagonal section here. As I started working back up the head to ensure I got saturation, I actually painted down a little bit every other section. So if you notice, when you're looking at it, it almost looks like she has a bit of a balayage because I've worked some sections where I pulled down further and some sections where I left it higher. So it creates kind of that highlighted balayage look and keeps it really soft and natural. And then afterwards, I went in with a glossing service. So I rinsed her, shampooed her, And then I decided to do my finish with a glossing service. So a glossing service is something we do at Wella. It's 1 part color, 1 part post color service, and 1 part pastel, which is a 6 volume. And it just infuses some color and some shine into the hair, and it allows me to kind of finish off my color service and tone her ends as well. So we have a comment here, game changer, so good for low lights as well. Yes, I love low lighting with the Back to Natural formula. That's something we run into a lot in the salon, where a blonde she's gotten almost too blonde and she wants some low lights, and we always have to formulate them warm. Or if we're going 2 levels or more darker, what we get is splotchiness. It doesn't take very evenly, because we kind of forget that we have to fill when we're going 2 levels or more darker, even in a low lighting scenario. So this is a really great formula to use to low light with too. And it's going to give that kind of more natural feel. Yeah. I hope everybody likes that. Okay, so my next scenario is too warm. We have all been here. This is something we run into a ton in the salon, pre-quarantine, post-quarantine. In this kind of scenario, what I'm thinking is, she's been quarantined for 3 months, or she's had highlights, or she was a global, but she's blonde and she's warm. She hasn't been using purple shampoo. She didn't tone her hair. And now she's just really quite warm. Now, this is kind of a no-brainer, I feel like, when we talk about color correction. Too warm, everybody's like, oh, well, you can just tone it. That's easy. And this is kind of an opportunity where I like to kind of bring out one of my favorite tools, my level finder. You can find this in our swatch books. Most manufacturers have one in their swatch books as well. What I like about ours is it has the level, and then it also has the underlying contributing pigment. This is also a really great consultation tool. So often when I'm dealing with a consultation with a, say, more difficult client, or a client that's pushing back at me a little bit, and I'm trying to help them understand kind of the color story and how lightening works, I'll bring this out, because it's a wonderful visual, being like, okay, you're here, you want to be here, this is what lives underneath, and kind of this is the steps we need to go through. So that's another use for this, is in consultation. It's probably the only swatch I'll ever bring out into consultation, because I don't like showing swatches to my clients, but this I will show because it's a great consultation tool. But then using your level finder, I use mine all the time. I actually have one from the studio that I quite love because everything comes out. It's magnetic. So that's the one I'm going to use today. But I keep this in my cupboard because this, I don't know how many times I'll be at the sink when I'm toning and my eyes lie to me, or I lie to myself and say, oh, I lifted to a clean level 9. No, you didn't. It's a level 8. So it's always really important to tone on the level that you have lifted to. And that's why I love using a level finder, because it doesn't allow me to lie to myself. How I kind of like to use this, I know we all know how to use a level finder, but there are some tricks to using it properly. So I will take, right now I'm using, because she's quite warm, I'm using my exposed contributing pigment one. I am going to take the level that I think she's at. So I think she's at a level 8. I'm going to separate a few sprigs out, so I'm not putting the whole thing on there. And I'm going to put it against the hair, and I'm going to move it around. And if I can still trace the hair, that means I'm not at the right level. So I'm going to go down to my level 7 here. Okay, a few sprigs out. I'm going to put it in the hair, and I'm going to move it around. And this one I can't track. So she's actually at a true level 7. Whereas I would have thought this was a level 8 if I didn't use this, right? And if I had just put the whole thing on, you can see how much it really shows it. So that's why I only take a few sprigs out. It allows you to really just kind of see if you can trace the hair. Great tool to have. I use it all the time. There's no shame in using your level finder. No shame. It's a wonderful tool to have. Okay. The reason why it's so important to tone on level is because when we're talking about toning, we always have to remember about our color wheel. And this is one thing I love about color correction, is it always takes it right back to the basics. And I know we've all been in the industry for a long time. We know our color wheel, we know exposed contributing pigment, we know the lightning curve, we know all that stuff. But sometimes, like when we're formulating, we can kind of just forget that it can be as easy as just going back to our color circle. So she is sitting at a level 7. So I'll take out my lightning curve here first. This is all backwards, of course. So she's sitting at a level 7. So she's going to have orange, yellow exposed pigment. So in order to tone that out, I'm going to go to my color circle. And I need blue and violet. Okay, it's easy as that. And what I love about Wella and our numerical system is we can see exactly what pigments are in there and what pigments we need by using our numerical system. So my formula that I ended up using was Too Warm. So let me grab Sally 2.0. I used the newer Blonde D'Or toners. They are a permanent liquid toner. So I will kind of go through what I love about them in a second, but this was my formula. So in Wella, our numbering system, it'll have a number and then a stroke, and then the numbers after the stroke are the tone. So the first number is the level, and then the numbers after are the tone. So you can see here, there's no number for the stroke, so there's no level, and I'll get to that in a second. But I used 1 part stroke 1/6, which is an ash violet. So there's my violet. And then I used 1 part stroke 1/8, which is an ash pearl or blue. We call it pearl and Wella because it sounds much nicer than blue, with pastel for 10 minutes. So this is an express toning service. And this was the result. Yeah, right here. So this section here. What I love about the Blonde D'Or toners, and they're really kind of unique to our portfolio. As I said before, we have usually a number before the stroke, so that would be the level. Blonde D'Or toners don't. What that means is they are tone and no level. So what makes them unique is they're going to tone at whatever level you put them on, which just changes the color correction game for me. If you ever seen the swatches here, we have swatches at a level 6, level 8, and a level 10, and then what each toner does at that level. What that means is if you have all these different levels in the hair, you're going to be able to tone all those levels with one toner. So when I say you have to tone on level, Blonde D'Or toners kind of change that game a little bit. I don't know how many times I've done a full head of corrective highlights and I have level 10 in there, I have level 8 in there, I have level 6 in there, and I always have to formulate for that level 6 because that orange is strong, and that's always going to be what the client is going to see. But with the Blonde D'Or toners, you can tone all those levels and still keep that brightness. So in this scenario, she was a level 7, but she had kind of some aspects of a level 8 in there, and I really didn't want to darken those level 8 pieces. So by using a Blonde D'Or toner, I still kept it nice and bright and clean without having to darken it to level 7. So that's a wonderful little trick. And they're also an express service. They're a 10-minute express toner that just kind of changes the game. So, see, I have a question here. Did you mix it with 10 ball? No, I mixed it with our pastel, which is a 6-volume developer. There's another way you can use Blonde D'Or toners. You can use them as a base breaking service as well. So you would mix them with 20 volume in that case for up to 30 minutes. And because they're tone and no level, because we all know when we base break, whether it be by accident or on purpose, you expose a lot of that underlying contributing pigment. So in this case, because it's tone and no level, it's going to tone as you're breaking the base. So you get a very beautiful base break with it. That's not going to be too warm because it's toning as you do it. So that's another little trick. If you haven't used them or you want to know more about Blonde D'Or toners, feel free to shoot me a message or even go on the app. There's a whole pamphlet on Blonde D'Or toners on there. But so there's 5 shades. There we go. Awesome. All right. So my next one is Too Cool. So I know this actually kind of looks like a pretty color on camera, but in real life, it's actually kind of green. So this scenario, I'm saying Sally decided she, was blonde at home. She was in quarantine. It was starting to go warm, and she decided to tone it herself at home, or she overused her purple shampoo, or one of those scenarios. We've all seen it before, especially the purple shampoo one, and I see it all the time in the salon. It drives me crazy. But this one, she doesn't understand color theory. She has put a blue ash toner on her very yellow hair and now turned her hair green. And she's wondering, oh my gosh, what can I do? This is a really great thing to get out your removal chart. So at the beginning, when I said in the app we have a color correction chart, and on there's actually a removal chart about color removal with Blondor, and it's split into 3 different sections. So there is slight removal of tone, there is minimal removal, and then there's like a band removal, and there's different formulas for each one. So that's when I said do not panic. We have the formulas for you, and we have it written down where you would use those formulas, which is quite wonderful. So in this case, we're doing a slight removal of tone. So what I decided to use was, I have this written down, was a cleansing rinse. So a cleansing rinse is 1 part Blondor multi-blonde powder with 4 parts of warm water. And I know most of you are thinking warm water, like why wouldn't you use a developer? In this case, since we're just removing a slight removal of tone, I actually don't need the developer to activate and remove the color. Just the lightener is going to remove enough of it for me. I have removed so many different kind of colors using just a cleansing rinse, and it's quite gentle. It's not going to make the hair feel terrible, and it's just going to gently cleanse that color out. So I will grab my Sally 2.0, and this is the section. Wait, I actually have a picture of what it looked like in between. Give me 1 second. So this was after the cleansing rinse. I put the cleansing rinse on for, I think it was 10 minutes I did, and it just kind of cleansed out all that darkness. So she went from this to that. That exposed what was underneath. No wonder she went green. And the lighting in this is quite terrible. Sorry, it was in my apartment. But that's kind of what got exposed. See, I have a question here. With the cleansing rinse, will the cleansing rinse affect the hair if she has lowlights in her hair? Yes. So if she has natural or lowlights, you could potentially shift the natural base. And that's why, sometimes color renew would be a different option. You could do a slight it's like a 15-minute color renew service, which can remove a slight remove of tone if they've used an oxidative color. But I feel like it's gentle enough that if it's not going to bump it too much, but you do want to respect the natural hair, or if it has lowlights or anything like that. So yeah, that was after the removal. And then afterwards I went in and toned her. So this was my toner. So as you can see in the previous picture, she had quite a bit of warmth exposed. So my formula was 1 part 9/96, which is a soft violet or a cendre violet. And then we did 1 part 7/89, which is a blue cendre or soft violet, with our 6 volume for 20 minutes. Now, that kind of brings me to my next point of toning and timing for your toning. I know a lot of people put a toner on for say 5 or 10 minutes. I like to put my toners on for the maximum or the proper processing time. The reason why I would do that is because you're going to get a lot of longevity out of it that way versus them coming in 2 weeks and saying, oh, my toner is washed out. So I will always formulate my toners to allow me to leave that toner on for the full processing time. So as you can see, she was about a level 7.5, 8. I chose softer toners like the soft violet with the blue soft violet, so I could leave this on for the maximum processing time and not overtone her again, essentially. So there is the result from that. It's quite beautiful, still quite bright. And one thing you'll also notice is I used different brands and different toners on each one of these blonde sections, and they all marry together. And that just goes down to formulation, understanding your exposed contributing pigment, and understanding your color wheel. I used 3 different brands, 3 completely different toners, and I was able to marry all 3 of those colors together. So it just goes to show, formula isn't I can share all my formulas with you, but it's all going to depend on what you've exposed underneath and how you decide to tackle it. You can get beautiful results using anything. It goes more into understanding all this versus just knowing what formula I used, right? I hope that makes sense. Give me some hearts if that made sense. All right. So I'll just do a quick recap of each section. If nobody has any questions about that. So we did Color Renew on the Too Dark section. And then we did Back to Natural Root Melt on the Too Light section with a glossing service. And then we did a cleansing rinse with Blondor toners. Blondor toners on the Too Warm section. Sorry about that. And then a cleansing rinse with Color Touch toners on the Too Warm section. Thank you guys so much for all the hearts. Thank you. That was my live today. I think I kept it in my time frame. Yeah, I did. Perfect. If you guys ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm just going to put up a picture here. There is my Instagram. Please give me a follow. And if you have any questions, please send me a message. I love answering them. And then also I put Wella Canada West there as well. That is for Wella in Western Canada. We actually have a giveaway going on right now for a Nioxin box. If you find it in there, definitely go enter our giveaway. And if you're not already doing it, follow Modern Beauty Supplies. Thank you, Modern, so much for having me today. I really enjoyed getting ready for this live. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And thank you so much for your time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.